Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Spooky Points with Krystal and Saagar. I am the hidden Indian passenger of the ghost of the Titanic, Saagar and Jetty, and I have a co-host today here from Australia.
What up, everybody? Australian breakdancing phenom, ray gun, right here, right here. That's right. Took the world by storm with my iconic moves, and I thought I would join everybody this morning to show you a few of those. You ready?
Yes,
Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Here we go, world. Here we go. Here we go. What up, everybody? That's right. I got a little sprinkler for you. I got a little sprinkler for you. I got a little kangaroo hop for you. I got a little kangaroo hop for you. Ready for this one? Whoa, you were not ready for that. You were not ready for that. How about this one? You ready? You ready? Watch this. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. You know what? You know what? I got another one for you. Bam! That's right.
Wow.
That's right. Give me the gold medal right now.
Well, they certainly didn't have that in my time at the Olympics.
I mean, she's a superstar, right? I had to go as Ray Gun because she is such an inspiration that literally anyone could make it to the Olympics.
You're absolutely right. Mine is much less complicated. I got this for my wedding, and I just said the only way I can justify this expense is if I wear it for Halloween every single day. So there we go. That was fun. I enjoyed it. All right,
we thought it was a little tense around here, so we wanted to lighten the mood up.
You got to lighten the mood. So what is even in the show today?
I genuinely, I was a little too focused on my kangaroo hops to really think it through, but I know we got polls. We got Edinger Mentum coming in to talk to us about why he thinks the polls could be underestimating Kamala. He was right about things in the past, so we'll talk to him about that. Trump was in a garbage truck.
Yeah, Trump's in a garbage truck.
Elon is threatening a severe depression if Trump gets elected, as if that's like a positive thing. We got Bill Clinton running around really not being helpful in Michigan with Arab American voters. We got to stop the steal nonsense. So anyway, happy Halloween, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well.
I hope that we can raise your spirits, inspire the holidays. It doesn't always have to be tense. We can still have a good time. Even 5 days before the election?
Something like that, yeah.
It's 5 days before the election. So there we go. We're excited. Thank you to all of our premium subscribers. BreakingPoints.com. You can go ahead and sign up there. I guess we should have done a giveaway, like a first reveal. Right, in terms of our Halloween costumes.
Yeah,
that would have been a smart
idea
at a business level, but instead we're just over here having fun. So to make up for it, go ahead and sign up, Breaking Points. We've got a great election night show planned for everybody. We're genuinely really, really excited for it. So that's right. All right, let's go ahead and start, right?
Let's do it. Actually, one of our premium subscribers sort of inspired this whole moment.
That's true.
We got a question in AMA about like, hey, will you guys dress up?
Yeah.
And I was sort of like,
she didn't want to do it.
I don't know. Because if there's some... I mean, we are covering Israel in the show, so it's not like there's not serious things and potential severe depression. So it's not like there aren't serious things in the show. And so you can feel sort of like, I mean, I do feel sort of ridiculous right at this moment, but what the hell?
I felt most ridiculous in my car because the guy looked over at me and started giggling. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah, when I was walking over here in the street, I was like, oh, this is embarrassing.
This is conceivably something you could ever wear, civilian attire.
With the makeup, that's actually what makes it more embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because you feel like, oh, people think I'm actually just wearing this.
Oh, right.
Like for real, just wearing this.
It's okay. All right.
Anyway.
We got a lack spirit here. That's the whole point.
All right, let's get to what is going on in the world. Start with some polling here. We had a little snippet from Harry Enton over at CNN talking about how if Trump does ultimately win, many signs were there indicating that that could possibly be the case. Let's take a listen to that.
A percentage of the public that thinks that the country is on the right track when the incumbent party loses. It's 25%. That 25% looks an awful bit like that 28% up there. It doesn't look anything like this 42% doesn't look anything like this 28%. So the bottom line is very few Americans think the country is on the right track at this particular point. It tracks much more with when the incumbent party loses than with it wins. In fact, I went back through history. There isn't a single time in which 28% of the American public thinks the country is going on the right track in which the incumbent party actually won. They always lose when just 28% of the country believes that the country is on the right track. Now, we don't know if Kamala Harris is going to succeed Joe Biden, but we know back in 2008, George W. Bush, his approval rating was down in the 20s. Did a Republican succeed George W. Bush? No. How about in 1968? Lyndon Baines Johnson, his net approval rating was negative. Did a Democrat succeed Lyndon Baines Johnson? No. How about in 52? Harry S. Truman. his approval rating was in the 20s, if not the upper teens. Did a Democrat succeed? Harry S. Truman at 52. My memory, no. No, as Kate Baldwin says.
Diana.
No. Diana. Republicans have been registering voters in big, huge numbers. They have been gaining in party registration versus the Democrats in the swing states with party registration. We're talking Arizona. I think it's a 5-point. They've expanded their lead from 5 points from where it was back in 2020. How about Nevada? Big Republican registrations there. They like the early vote. How about North Carolina? Big Republican registration gains. How about Pennsylvania? We spoke about it before a few months ago. Big Republican party registration gains versus from where they were.
So we're definitely at the point in the election, Saagar, where there's something for everyone.
Absolutely.
If you want to look at those historical trends, it's totally legitimate. Wrong track numbers are horrific for Democrats. You've got a very unpopular Democratic incumbent. And to be honest with you, I do think if Kamala loses, as much as these, factors that we talk about in terms of their, totally losing the Arab American, Muslim American vote, turning off young voters, like running around with Liz Cheney, all of these things are going to matter, but I honestly do think that the unpopularity of Joe Biden is the biggest weight around her neck.
Yeah, sometimes the fundamentals are the most important, and we've been looking at global trends. You've seen post-incumbent parties. Matt Iglesias recently wrote about this. Nate Silver also identified the trend, but they've lost elections across the entire globe. So sometimes that is just a precursor and a signal of what is to come. Now, as you said, there are signs for everybody. Let's put this up there on the screen, please. What you can see in this very large poll sample, we talked a little bit about this last time around, some 70,000 American adults. So that's why you should pay attention. This is national likely voters. And they have Arizona. I'm going to read each state. Arizona, they have Trump at 51-47. Georgia, 51-46 for Trump. Now, in Michigan, it actually is flipped. They have Harris 51, Trump 46. Nevada, this was the biggest surprise for me. Harris 51, Trump 47. North Carolina, 50-48 for Trump. Pennsylvania, razor tight, 49-48 for Kamala Harris. Texas, 51-47. And then Wisconsin at 50-47. So clearly what you can see is a slight edge for Kamala Harris in the blue wall states, with the Sun Belt states really moving away from her, which would put her around a 270, 268. In fact, though, Nate Silver's new analysis has North Carolina as the most likely tipping point state at number 2. If you do see a shock on election night, it could certainly come from there. And that'd be a very interesting map. It really would, where we could see if Kamala was able to flip North Carolina, but then lose all of the Sun Belt states, you would have a full-on, quote-unquote, realignment phenomenon where you just have this coalition of white, suburban, college-educated voters who deliver the presidency to her across these 4 states, even though Trump is able to run up his margins in all of the Sun Belt, and particularly with Black and Latino men.
Yeah. Democrats like the gender divide that we've seen in the early voting results, and I've even seen some Republicans like Cernovich and Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
Now, saying that they're concerned about that. Now, they may just be saying that to try to, make sure they're juicing their voters and not giving them a sense of overconfidence, because overconfidence is like all that the Trump campaign has been selling. So I don't know how genuinely concerned they are. But North Carolina is one of those states where there's been a significant gender gap in terms of turnout, where there are significantly more women turning out in the early vote than men. Now, early vote, you really shouldn't make that much of it, because who knows who's going to show up on election day, and that's all that counts. Like, voting early versus voting on election day, your vote still only counts once. But if you're looking to try to read the tea leaves about who's excited, who's turning out their coalition, et cetera, that's a sign that's positive in favor of Democrats that at least some Republicans are voicing some concern about.
Yeah, I have the early vote female number actually right in front of me. So in Georgia, the early vote female share was 56 in 2020. It's 55% today. In Pennsylvania, this is where it's the most interesting. In 2020, it was 57. 2024, it's 56. Arizona, it was 2020, 54. 2024, 52%. So you have majority female early vote all across the board. There's been some talk of this whole so-called like cannibalizing vote phenomenon, but I'm just not sure how much to buy that. It's very clear to me that the country just loves early voting now. I mean, you have almost 50 million ballots that have been cast across, that's almost 1/3 of the entire electorate. You'll have even more in the coming days, and then obviously on election day itself, you're probably going to see, maybe not record turnout, but it will not be the same as it was previously. So in Nevada, I believe some 60% of the overall vote has already been cast, projected vote. So you can really start to play with what you want for what the results are, which is what John Ralston has been looking at. But there are signs for anybody who wants the tea leaves, and I just think the main takeaway is you can't be shocked at any outcome in this election.
No,
really
that's
cannot.
absolutely right, including like a significant blowout for either side.
Absolutely.
Is in some ways almost more likely than the, razor thin, like they win 270 to 268 or whatever. It's probably more likely that all or most of the battleground states go in one or the other direction. If you assume that there's, like, let's say it's the, 2016 or 2020 polling miss, then you end up with Trump sweeping all of the battleground states. If it's the 2022 polling miss, then you end up with Kamala sweeping all but one of the battleground states. So who knows what you're really looking at. Speaking of Pennsylvania, I could put this up on the screen. This is the latest from Monmouth. Surprise, surprise, they've got it really close. Oh, sorry, this is the CNN poll. Monmouth is next.
This is actually interesting because it's not tied.
It's not tied. Yeah. Like so many of these pollsters, I really do buy into the view that many of these pollsters are very nervous about getting it blatantly wrong. And so they're, whether intentionally or not, somewhat putting their thumb on the scales to make sure that the race is close. And so many of the polls are 48, 47, 49, 49, et cetera. CNN put out a poll that shows, some significant separation between Harris and Trump. You've got in Michigan, Kamala up 48-43. In Wisconsin, Kamala up 51-45. That's one of the states that has seemed to, in some of the polling averages, move against her a bit. So for them to find her up by 6 here outside of the margin of error is significant. But then you got Pennsylvania tied 48-48. And obviously, if she's going to take that blue wall path, she has to sweep all of those states, assuming she doesn't win the Sunbelt states, which we don't really know. Those are also very close. But these are the states that she's been performing the best in by and large. And they've got Pennsylvania tied, so incredibly close.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Especially, I mean, even with PA and that tie figure, I'm just getting really sick of looking at it just because there is no indication. I mean, look, last time around, obviously, everything's been within 1 point of each other with Joe Biden. Same thing in 2016 when Trump eked out a win over there. Monmouth, gives us some similar stuff to look at. Let's put this up there on the screen. This is specifically the Pennsylvania voter poll. So what they find here is presidential support, and this is included with third party. Harris and Trump. So among registered voters, it's 46-47. Amongst, quote, extremely motivated voters, they have it as a tie. Amongst 2020 voters, they actually have Trump up by 1%. Amongst 2022, they have Kamala up by 2%. And I don't know exactly what this means. High moderate propensity voters, whatever the hell that is, 48-47 for Kamala. I mean, basically, it's like a net tie.
A tie on all of these metrics.
All of this. I mean, and again, when you go early vote diving, you can find whatever you want. You can look at the female vote. You can look at rural versus urban. But I think one of the main reasons why comparing it to 2020 is just a real crapshoot is that Republicans have dramatically changed their tune on early voting.
Yeah.
They have dramatically changed the way that they themselves are even looking and about turnout and all of that. So, I mean, just for example, this morning I was looking at Georgia. In Georgia, the highest percentage of early vote totals is in the rural counties. It's not in Fulton and in the suburban counties. It's a lot of elderly whites who live in rural districts who have been taking advantage of early vote because that's what they were told to do by the Trump campaign. Now, that really much could put them over the edge, considering that they lost by such a razor-thin margin back in 2020. So it could very be a smart strategy. But that's exactly my point is you could still turn out quite close and even have some sort of Democratic surge with early voting or even later early voting and or election day voting that really comes home. That's a big question too about the gender gap. When you've got majority female of the electorate in the early vote, does that mean that men are going to wait until day of? That is problematic just for in general because A, you want to bank votes, but stuff happens sometimes on election day. Well, line is long, whatever. People don't want to do it, and they decide to go home. So, all of these things certainly matter on the margins.
Yeah. Ryan made a point on Twitter yesterday that is funny, but also like not without no backing. He said, "I love my dudes, but if there's a nationwide contest between men and women that goes to the group that manages to show up at the right place and fill out their forms on time and do all those things, the men would need to start with an advantage of several million to be competitive."
Yeah.
So that's Ryan Grimm's take on the gender battle here. But yeah, I mean, I think that when we look at all these states and the early vote in particular, number one, you have to keep in mind that in every single state, the rules are completely different. some states have early in person, some states don't have early in person, some states have, like Pennsylvania sort of has early in person, but then it's this weird, like you have to go and pick up an absentee ballot and then like come back and
so
put
apparently
it in. So
you
it's
can
not
do it
like,
in person at the same time. Like
right,
you
but
can get it and then give it back.
it's not the same as like you just wait in line and
Right.
like do the thing like you would do on election day. Like in Virginia, I already voted and
Yeah.
that's how it works. You
Same.
go in like it's election day and you know, put in the machine and that's that.
It was
It's
so
very
easy.
simple.
Yeah.
It's very simple and easy. Pennsylvania is apparently more cumbersome. Some states have more of a tradition of mail-in balloting. A lot of the Western states seem to have more of a tradition of mail-in balloting, even predating the pandemic. And then you do still have some partisan differences in people's voting preferences. So even though Republicans have been consistently urging early vote, the emphasis has been on early in person. So for example, in Nevada, you know, which is a state that looks the best for Republicans in terms of the early vote, a preponderance of the Republican vote is that early in person, where Democrats continue to have somewhat of an edge in the mail-in balloting. And that seems to be pretty consistent. I mean, you've got Elon Musk and you've got Trump still out there sowing like, you know, concern about mail-in ballots. So that's been the preference for a lot of Republican voters. And then on the Democratic side, I mean, remember, 2020, that was a pandemic. So there were people who turned in a mail-in ballot then who normally are in-person voters who are reverting back to what their previous habits are because they're no longer fearful of being around other human beings. So you would expect to have some erosion in terms of the Democratic early vote. That's why it really is apples to oranges in terms of comparing the 2024 early vote numbers to the 2020 numbers. So anyway, that's what we can say about it. I think we have one more like Tide poll that we can show everybody for what it's worth. This is a Marquette Law poll of likely Wisconsin voters.
A5, please.
This is A5. We can put this up on the screen. Harris at 50, Trump at 49, within the margin of error, so effectively tied. And you also show here a very close Wisconsin Senate race, which there have been some indications that the Senate races previously, the Democrats outside of Montana have been pretty consistently, you know, with a wide margin. Wisconsin is one, and Pennsylvania is another where that gap seems to have been closing in the final days. So we'll see if that ultimately pans out. I've also seen some more positive indicators for John Tester in the state of Montana. I've seen a couple polls that have him tied with his opponent, Sheehy, so perhaps giving Democrats some bit of hope that they may actually be able to hold on.
I saw that too. Yeah, I mean, look, the Senate ones, there's actually not nearly enough high-quality polling. I mean, Montana in particular, right? Very notoriously difficult state to poll. They also usually don't do it at a state level or at a national media level because they mostly leave it to the campaigns. And then in terms of Ohio, I've seen similar stuff where I've seen Sherrod Brown up by like 7 points, and then I've also seen it completely within the margin of error. And then Bernie Moreno's campaign claiming that he is ahead in their internal polls, which they released. So it's one of those where truly choose your own adventure. We have one more flavor of a bunch of tied states. New Fox News Battleground polls. Can we put that one up there, please? What do we have? Pennsylvania, 50-49 for Trump. Michigan, 49-49. North Carolina, 50-49. So the only one that's actually interesting to me there is North Carolina because it was the closest one where they had Trump only up by 1, where previously been up by almost 2 to 3 in every other one that I looked at. Considering that Joe Biden only won it or lost it by about a point or 0.5% last time, that means that Harris very much could be put over the edge in terms of some sort of shock victory. Like I said, Nate Silver's new election model now has North Carolina as the number 2 tipping point state behind Pennsylvania. In some ways, this is not bad for those who are going to watch with us, and because we're on East Coast time, because we will get the returns in pretty soon from Georgia, from North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. We won't have to wait forever for Arizona and the Nevada votes to come in. If we get, for example, a Trump sweep or a likely Trump sweep in all 3 of those states, like you can pretty reliably say like what's going to happen. Although of course, a lot can. And then other way, if we see major Democratic overperformance, back in 2022, for example, early night, things didn't look good for Democrats because Florida vote came in and it was a red blowout for Ron DeSantis.
It was looking like that red wave.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Pennsylvania returns, and it was a complete shock. Of course, Fetterman ends up winning by 5 points, which we knew relatively quickly on election night there.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind for, don't base your Florida conclusion off what happened, or sorry, Pennsylvania conclusion off what happens in Florida. My eyes are really on North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania in the East Coast time. By around 9:30, 10 p.m., we're going to have a pretty good idea about like what's going on there and overperformance and stuff. And by that time, the Central Time Zone will also become to come in as well. And then we'll really see what the phenomenon is there in the blue states.
Yeah, that's
the blue
right.
wall. Yeah.
Also, just a note for everybody, programming note. So, of course, we're going to do live election night coverage, which we're super excited about. We'll have Ryan and Emily here. We'll do the whole thing. We're going to have Logan in studio breaking down the numbers. That was one of the areas that we were, trying to improve upon from some of the last elections, making sure, because it's hard for us to like talk and also really stay on top of all the data that's coming in. So we've got Logan coming in too, and partnering with Decision Desk HQ. They're always very quick in terms of getting the most updated results. So he's going to be manning that and updating us throughout the night, which we're very excited about. We're also going to do election previews tomorrow with Ryan and Emily, so you can take a look for that. And next week, we're basically like, it may be that we know election night what happens, and it's really clear. That is entirely possible. It's also entirely possible that we go for a week still looking like, oh, they're still counting in Philadelphia, they're still counting in Phoenix, or whatever. So we're kind of all on standby next week to make sure that we're able to continuously update you guys and stay on top of whatever the news. So can look for all of that.
All right.
In the meantime, as I mentioned before, I don't know if you guys have seen Eden Germentum on Twitter or on Substack, but his actual name is Josh. He was correct in 2022 about saying, hey guys, this doesn't look like a red wave to me, when we and many others were wrong. He also was correct in calling the Georgia Warnock election another one that many analysts and pollsters got wrong. Now, Josh wants Kamala to win. He is a partisan, so we factor that in.
Keep that in mind.
But, he's done some really thoughtful analysis of why it could be that the polls are underestimating the Democrats this time, when previously in 2020 and 2016, they were underestimating the Republicans. So we wanted to have Josh in to break all of those insights down for us. Let's get to it.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.